Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Ubuntu this particular evening. Of course, it's a Thursday, and we decided to bring to you a very special interview as we host a very special person today that we have been trying to get right here so that we get you to meet your leaders on this very platform. I am your host, Lance Sani Banda, this evening. And of course, I'm not alone, but co hosting with Himba this particular evening. Himba, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening, Lance, and how are you doing? And good evening,
I,
viewer.
I am doing fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How has been your day?
Well, the day has been Thursday.
Did you go to celebrate with the teachers because they are celebrating Chiriraka? Weekend, you have to be good friends to the civil servants and the teachers, right?
Well, unfortunately, November being a month for, just cancer awareness, I am joining, those people that are doing the no shave November so that we save up the little coins that we have to go and shave and donate to the cancer patients in all cancer hospitals.
Okay, that's brilliant. I would love to see that donation, Lance.
All right, thank you so much. And of course, to you, our dear viewer, of course, this evening we bring to you Honorable Cornelius Mweetwa, who is the UPND spokesperson as well as the Southern Province Minister. Of course, discussing is UPND still on course in delivering its campaign promises. Honorable, good evening and welcome to this interview.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you on the channel. Finally, at least you have to talk to the people through this platform. It's an honor.
One of it's a great honor, actually, not for me to be given an opportunity to interact with the citizenry, so that we are able to learn more about the perceptions of the people, where we think we are. We must be able to get feedback, and it is interactions like these that give such an opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, Himba, let's kick the ball rolling, or let's start the ball rolling as we get into the interview.
Thank you so much, Lance, and Honorable, good evening once more, and welcome to the program.
Good evening, please, Himba. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me on this platform.
You are welcome, and we are so privileged to have you. And just having an opportunity for us to interact with you, it gives us joy as the citizen of Zambia. Honorable, before we go any further, we would want to know who is Honorable Cornelius Mweetwa. Who are you?
Thank you very much. Cornelius Mweetwa is, what should I say? I'm a servant of the people, a member of parliament for Choma Central Constituency, and a provincial minister for the Southern Province, UPND national spokesperson. I'm doing my third term at parliament. I have been in active politics for 20 years plus now. And I have also done student politics. I was UNZASO president at the university. I'm just carried over into national politics. It is a journey that appears not yet ending, and I'm happy to be here to discuss national issues.
I was once told that you were a very controversial UNZASO student.
Well, I don't know. Descriptions differ, but they could mean one thing at the end of the day. When I was president of UNZASO, we had fruitful engagements with government, and especially that that time, I had also come from police as a police officer, so I had come from the civil service. So I understood government machinery operations very well. We interacted well with the leadership of President Mwanawasa. We were able to come through as a student union leadership to criticize government as and when it was deemed necessary. And we also came up to support them when we felt they had done something that was in the interest of the nation. So this is the kind of politics that for me at personal level, I have continued to promulgate, to always appreciate something to be appreciated about. That is the kind of politics that I do. Sometimes I stand very, very strong on views that I feel that they are not in the interest of the people, be it at the university, be it in parliament, especially where it concerns violation of human rights. I have been an advocate, an ardent supporter of the enjoyment of fundamental, freedoms, human rights, and human sovereignty, including, at Parliament, supporting the female caucus on the promotion of women participation in politics. I have been the chairperson at Parliament for the Men's Parliamentary Caucus on gender to support more women coming on the mainstream political, arena. This is the diversity that I bring to politics. Policeman, I'm a qualified teacher. I studied at the University of Zambia as a teacher, and I'm a practicing lawyer. And of course, I'm a son of a peasant farmer, and beginning to graduate myself into farming now. Given that I have been in politics and I think I have given my considerable contribution, I must begin to prepare for the next destination of my activities.
Very brilliant background, and I'd want to keep on listening to hear who you are, who is the honorable, who do we have in parliament. Having given us that background, how do you rate the UPND government at the moment, especially the performance?
Well, first of all, as UPND spokesperson, it must be understood that my views are highly partisan. They are highly partisan. They are skewed in the direction of looking at things the way we are seeing them as UPND. And that is a benefit that I think would get from getting feedback from yourselves. Now, the way we see things as UPND, first of all, to answer the question whether and where is UPND on the equation of progress, having formed government 1 year, 2.5 months ago, we have to look at a checklist of the electoral promises that were made by President HH, President Hakainde Hichilema, and his political party, then UPND. What are the electoral commitments that the president made that have been met and those that are yet to be met? Number one, the president promised free education. Maybe before I even go to those social service sector promises, number one, the president promised to reunite the country under a genuine banner of one Zambia, one nation, because the country had polarized as would be epitomized and evidenced by the composition of the previous cabinet, where the cabinet was 98%, 99% composition of ministers from largely two regions of this country. That was a mirror of polarization in the country, given the backdrop and provisions of the Constitution in terms of Article 173 and read together with Article 259 of the Republican Constitution that requires balancing in terms of gender, in terms of regional and ethnicity in public office. That cabinet of the previous administration failed to meet that basic constitutional tenet requirement, and therefore that is the basis upon which the president was saying there was need to reunite the country. And some people were asking, who tells HH that the country is not united? It was not united because in the participation of the governance of the nation at the apex of the leadership of the country cabinet, certain regions of this country were sidelined and marginalized. The president of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, has walked the talk. He has ensured that what he promised the people that he will do to reunite the country, he has done it. His cabinet is a full and total representation of the entire 10 provinces of this country, including the 2 provinces that the UPND did not come out with elected members of parliament. These are Luapula and Muchinga. The president used his constitutional provision of nomination to have nominated members from those particular 2 provinces. And so in this cabinet, all the 10 provinces are adequately represented. And I think this has shocked some, or even many, who thought that a UPND cabinet would be dominated by people from the southern province. Nothing. There are just 4 from the southern province in that entire cabinet. And that is what the president meant when he said that we have to be fair and have equal distribution of opportunity. Number 1. Number 2, the president promised that once he forms government, he is going to bring about restoration of the rule of law. This today, as we speak, can no longer be in dispute that it has been highly attained. Today, we know that all government systems and apparatus operate in accordance with the law. There is no sacred cow. There is nothing now of people saying, Boma ni Boma, I belong to a ruling party, you can violate the law. Everybody knows that once you do that, you are on your own. To that extent, the president has ensured that even in his acceptance speech, victory acceptance speech, he underlined the idea of restoration of the rule of law, as would be evidence later on in what he did, and emphasized end of political violence at bus stops, at markets, end of political thuggery and hooliganism, going to bus stops and markets to patronize public service utility users and begin to illegally levy them and pocket the money as cadres. That has come to an end. The president promised this, he has delivered. Cadreism, he promised to end cadreism.
Sorry to cut you. Just a follow-up on that one. The issue of cadres, there are reports that it's coming back into markets, and one of the scenarios which is there is that of Comesa market, where traders are complaining, or were complaining, that cadres are collecting money from them, or they are levying them. And then also on the same issue of law and order, we have seen the youth deputy national spokesperson, that is Anderson, saying or giving a directive to say that no citizen must put on the PF regalia, and we haven't seen the police coming in, or maybe any statement coming through from the UPND. Are you sure that the UPND has dealt with these vices of hooliganism or improper living by these cadres in markets?
Well, first of all, I would like to indicate this very unequivocally, that there are no UPND cadres in any of the markets conducting illegal activities. Any UPND cadres or supporters who are found at any bus stop or any market are trading normally as ordinary citizens without any upper hand whatsoever. The most challenging thing we have found out is that the very people who under PF were conducting these illegal enterprises have now mutated themselves by nomenclature, pretending to be UPND cadres, UPND supporters, and therefore continuing their endeavor of levying people illegally. This is not UPND. The UPND cadres who went on a long marathon, a long journey of 20 years plus to be able to form government, they respect the directive that the president has given, that no cadreism at markets, no hooliganism, nothing like UPND cadres going to markets to levy people. But these vices, we see them happen, and when we follow through, you find that, like the issue you are referring to of Comesa market, I was on I was on Hot FM, I think a week ago, where in fact I came to my attention that the gentleman who is masquerading as the leader of the UPND group at COMESA is actually a bona fide PF cadre who used to do that under the veil of PF that time. So all these people, we have asked the police to pursue them. And in fact, if you go on the ground to try and follow through, you will find that they are doing this in secrecy. They don't want it to be heard because they know that that enterprise has no backing whatsoever from the UPND as a party and also from the government itself. So these are criminal enterprises that in fact have to be performed by those who like to violate the law in the like manner that criminal activities take place despite the law being clear in black and white that when you do such a thing, this is what is going to happen to you. So those are not UPND cadres. And the Minister of Local Government, I had a personal discussion with him last week. He has promised to ensure that their council, police follow through. If you go to bus stops, if you go to COMESA today, you will find that the people who are legally collecting levies from marketeers, it is the council. So that is the direction we are taking. We have these remnants of, of the past who are trying to resist the change that has come because they are trying to cling on to their way of living where they used to earn a living by illegality. I think that this is work in progress.
Just another follow-up on that one. Are you trying to say the UPND has no cadres at all in the market?
Presently, the UPND does not have any cadres in any market conducting any illegal activities. Any cadre who is doing that, whether using the UPND name and the bona fide supporter, because the bona fide supporters of the UPND have heeded to the presidential directive. And I was in cabinet meeting just on Monday this week, where the president reiterated that he will not allow any of his ministers and indeed any of the leaders to be seen to be standing on the side of those trying to propagate the idea that cadres should go back to the markets. That is not going to happen under this presidency of President Hakainde Hichilema.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I'd love us to go back to where we left with the first question. Where are we with the UPND government? Are we on the right track with the UPND government to deliver what they promised to the Zambian people?
Yes, indeed. I was just graduating a point to indicate that the president had promised that he will run a civil service that is meritocracy based to ensure that job placement, recruitment, promotion should be based on merit. It should be based on academic qualification and not political connection. This is what you have seen. Number one, when the president came in, many people were damn scared that this president is going to flush out a lot of civil servants on account that they could have been labeled PF, especially that PF in their manifesto had indicated that for one to hold a high position in public service, you need to be a bona fide PF member. And so many people were scared that, the government has changed, our jobs are gone. The president has said all of us, we are Zambians, some of you had no choice but to begin to lean towards political affiliation of the ruling party that time, because that was their philosophy, trying to politicize the civil service so that the civil service had to listen to the political antenna instead of the politicians listening to the policy advice from the technocrats. So that is a difference. The president has walked the talk, and that is why many people who thought they would be fired have not been fired. They have been retained because of the experience that they have in the civil service. It's just a question of now being able to ask one another that let's sing from one hymn book. We got right the idea that things can be run differently, that you can actually run government with people who were perceived, some of them to have been pro and strong PF, but they are there because they are Zambians. We must run, government as a neutral enterprise, divorced of politics. When you form government, you must promulgate policy and not politics. So the president has delivered on that one. You have seen even the recruitment of teachers, the recruitment of health workers. It was done in a very accountable and transparent manner. There was no favoritism. There was no nepotism. There was no preserved jobs for anybody. It was first come, first take on the basis of quality of qualification. That is why even those who were not picked, no one is complaining. No one has pointed a single accusatory finger towards corrupt practices in the award of those jobs. So the president and his administration, they are walking the talk.
So just quickly, before we go to the next question, on that very one, the recruitment process of teachers and doctors, you were one of the first MPs or ministers to bemoan the selection process in the southern province, and you had called for the process to be restarted. And then we also saw comments, or we also saw other people coming through to talk about how the process was not favorable. There were talks of other people being favored because they are this tribe and that. Are you sure the process was just as clean if you were the first person to bemoan the process, saying that it hasn't been followed as it was laid out?
Well, first of all, a point of correction. I never at any point asked for the process to be restarted all over again. What I did was simply to ventilate my views that whereas the process required that before the names are sent to Lusaka, those names were supposed to be sent to the provincial administration, which houses the provincial human resource officer, who is the deputy permanent secretary, because that is how it was prescribed, to ensure accountability, that districts that were given the authority to recruit had done the right things, so that as the names are going to Lusaka, and should Lusaka have questions about anything, we should not be found to be outside the loop. We should have participated and be able to say, yes, this is what we saw as well. And so that is all I indicated. Nonetheless, we were not in a position ourselves to be able to begin to change names. No, it was just a procedural requirement that those names needed to pass through the provincial administration. Notwithstanding, the names actually ended up passing through the provincial administration because the PEO, who is the provincial education officer, the lead for the province, actually participated. So no wonder we let that thing go through, and we okayed it administratively, and we had no issues whatsoever. And that is why you saw that even after the names were announced, no one came out to complain. This has been the most clean recruitment process ever seen in the recent recruitment processes in Zambia. No one has complained about any corrupt act. Zero. I think it is time to give kudos to this administration for walking the talk. And if I must continue on the question you asked first, because it's a very, very loaded question, I wanted to indicate that on the local front, the president has done the things I've said he has done, but he has also ensured that some of his key electoral pronouncements, he has made sure they are attained. Number one, promised free education. Many people had asked, where are you going to find the money? He said, I know where the money is. Number one, close out the loopholes for plunder and ensure that whatever the money that you have, whatever resources you have, you utilize them optimally and prudently. That has been achieved. Today, all the children in Zambia are going free of charge, free education, the same way it was under the UNIP days. It has now come because of the prudent leadership of President HH. The president had also promised, we are going to reinstate meal allowances for students at institutions of learning, public universities. That has been done. The president had promised that once we form government, we will ensure that public service workers who contribute to NAPSA begin to access their money while they are still in employment, while they still have energy, so that they can begin to invest and prepare for their exit. Not when you have retired, your energy levels have gone down. That's when you now begin to think of what you do. That the president has walked his talk. The cabinet has already approved. That is en route on the floor of the House to be able to amend the law relating to NAPSA and the way they handle the contributions of the public service workers. So the president has, kept his promise. The president also promised that once I form government, I will ensure that farmers who supply maize to FRA, they should be paid on time so that they can use that money to buy input for the next season. As we speak now, we are just at the onset of the rainy season. All those farmers who took maize to FRA, all of them have been paid, except a few, those who came out in the secondary phase of the purchase of that maize after the initial budgeted for. Farmers were already, their maize had already been taken in, but government realized there was too much maize out there that remained unattended to, and so government had to move in quickly to find money outside the budget, because the budget that had the provision for purchase of maize last year was the one we inherited from our colleagues. The first budget of the UPND is this one, which Honorable Mtokotwane presented, a few weeks ago. And also, and importantly so, the president had promised that once I form government, I will ensure that we begin to tackle Zambia's crippling international debt, which at the time of forming government, the government Republic of Zambia had become an international laughingstock, failure to meet international obligations. You are all seeing what is happening. Zambia's official creditors have come on a round table and agreed to begin to structure how this debt is going to be dismantled, and they have actually promised us good news. We expect that there will be a win-win situation in these negotiations, in the like manner that Zambia once attained the HIPIC situation. You have to note here that for you as a government to be able to sit around with your official creditors and they begin to agree restructuring, debt restructuring, in order to create headroom for you to have a fiscal space to operate your economy positively, they first have to trust that leadership. They trust the leadership of President HH and his administration, and that's why they have agreed to come to Zambia's aid. And secondly, on that same score, around that score, President HH had promised that once I form government, I will ensure that we get the IMF stimulus package. Some people are saying, no, you won't even manage. We have been asking for it for 7 years. Who do you think you are? You have seen within a few months, the IMF has nodded to Zambia's, restructuring, program, which has shown positive indications. Number one, of the rule of law, and number two, prudent economic management. Because rule of law is key, because it sets the foundation for economic takeoff and also guarantees regime, policy regime predictability in order to attract foreign direct investment. You need to have a stable, policy regime, a stable, a law, a legal, regulatory regime. This, the president and his administration have guaranteed. That is why you have seen also that the World Bank, just a few days ago, have agreed to give Zambia 275 million United States dollars. Zambia on the international front is flying high. The Zambian flag is flying high out there because we have a qualitable #1 marketing officer in President HH out there. The nations out there of the world respect us. Now, even if you go out of the country, you're in South Africa, you are proud as a Zambian that the Zambian kwacha is stronger than the rand. This is how it should be. We haven't yet gotten there in terms of getting the full beneficiation as a people, but already we are beginning to get some of the sentimental advantages of having a country being run properly, such as knowing that our kwacha is the best performing on the continent and even globally.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Before we bring in Mr. Mukelebai, who have just joined us in the studio, I just want to come up with a follow-up question on the fertilizer. There's a cry out that some other areas right now in the country, they have not yet received the farming input. What's your reaction to that?
As you see me here, I'm seated at my house in Choma. I have just come from, in fact, I arrived a few minutes ago. I've just come from Namwal to check on the fertilizer situation. The fertilizer has already arrived in all the districts in the province and, in fact, the whole country. All the districts have started distributing fertilizer in this particular province, except Choma. And that issue is being fixed tomorrow. So the issue of complaints, yes, they are genuine. At the start of the distribution, you have these challenges. With technological issues, we had the Zamis, app, which is being used for this distribution, having some challenges with Smart Zambia and so on. So these technological issues have been resolved. The Minister of Agriculture on the floor of the House indicated, I think, this week that notwithstanding the technological challenges, we have a backup system where we are going to go manual because the rainy season does not wait for any challenges that you are faced with. The fertilizer is on the ground, the seed is on the ground. About 60% this far has already been, delivered. 350,000 metric tons in total of fertilizer has been purchased at the total value of 370 million United States dollars. And I think that this has been a bargain because initially this fertilizer was supposed to have been purchased at 523 million United States dollars. But the good negotiation and negotiating skills of President HH ensured that the suppliers had to, succumb and agree that we had to come out with a win-win situation. Yes, on the ground, there could be this and that challenge. And I know the issues of, congestion. This is what we are trying to work at, to try and see how to dismantle this kind of arrangement. We are looking forward to a smooth distribution of fertilizers so that our farmers can go and do their business.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mweetwa. Many questions coming through, or many questions that Zambians need answers to, which I would like you to attend to. But before that, let's get to welcome Mukelebai, who has joined us into the studio, and as well put through a call to our viewers. Those of you that are watching us from either Facebook or YouTube, we have shared the link with you. That's a studio link. Please come through into the studio, but as you come in, make sure that you allow your mic and camera so that we can have a proper deliberation or a proper interaction right here. Have a one-on-one interaction with Honorable Cornelius Mweetwa, who is the UPND spokesperson, as well as Southern Province Minister, as we tackle is the UPND on course to deliver on its campaign promises. Mukelebai, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mweetwa.
Which one is that?
Long time.
From Wamwes.
Honorable, I will just go straight into a question. I would greet my wife later. I just wanted to find out what is going on, the connection between the government and your party, UPND members. There has been a lot of cry of non-communication, that you guys, you are in the government, you are not communicating to your people in the party structures. And also the other issue is on the flow of information. Right now, I was enjoying listening to you, how you are busy telling us about the progress that is taking place in our country. But why should it be that we have to beg for that information, for you to be invited to this forum to come and give us this information when you have the machinery at your disposal? We need to know. People are craving for information, but we are not getting all this. And that is why there is propaganda, which these guys, the opposition, are taking advantage, and they are really selling their propaganda, and people are buying their propaganda because there is lack of flow of information from the government. We need to know. And we hear this money that is being used, you purchase this, HH has done this, HH has done that. All we hear is from people that we ask, we invite to come to our shows. But when is the government ready to disseminate the information easily, freely, like you used
Thank
to?
you.
Because we miss you. I especially, I miss Mweetwa, that was very vocal. You could actually even kill all this propaganda with one word,
Thank you.
but you are
So much,
nowhere to
Vom.
be seen. That's my concern, that.
Thank you so much, Vom Kerebai. Please attend to the questions, Honorable, before we go to the next one.
Thank you very much for that very brilliant question. Firstly, you have alluded to the issue that we are not communicating to our people within the party structure. I think that the reality of the matter is that we are 1 year, just 1 year plus in government. And I will admit that in this last 1 year, we had sort of left our people behind for a very simple reason. You see, we were voted by all Zambians. And therefore, the primary emphasis was to ensure that right from the start, we begin by prioritizing doing things that brings everyone together and that do not leave anyone behind. So if you look at the progress that has been made in the last 1 year in this government, most of the programs are targeted towards the entire nation. Because when you have been elected to form government, your primary core is to respond to the entire nation, because you know that when you go to the next election, you need everyone on board. So that is what has happened. And with our people, I agree with complaints that are coming, but I would slightly perhaps indicate that it is not a question of not communicating to them, because nowadays with social media, I can tell you I'm on more than 50, 100 UPND, social media groupings, and every information of what happens under this administration is shared equally and fairly and spreads like a wildfire on all the media, social media platforms of UPND, where our membership is. I am literally on almost each and every constituency's, social media platform. So they have the information. The truth of the ground is that there has been an expectation, or expectation, how should I put it? There's been a crisis of expectation, where it was deemed that once we formed government, then this should happen to me, this should happen to that one, this, I'm expecting this opportunity. Those opportunities in this last 1 year to our people have been very of the president that this year, in the second year, our people will not be left behind. And when I say our people, it is our people in the party structures, including the people of Zambia, ordinarily. And watch the space beginning tomorrow, Friday. The Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises will be making groundbreaking statements of what this government intends to begin to do, and not just intending to do, but is beginning to do starting tomorrow, to ensure that we now cascade from those people we are asking for degrees, for certificates, and whatsoever to get employed, now to begin to look at those who may not have those degrees, but indeed have other opportunities to do something in life. Starting tomorrow, the Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises will be on the ground to begin that program. Now, coming to the issue of not having a smooth flow of information to the public, I think that is a challenge which I take squarely as a party spokesperson of the UPND. I do have an obligation to be able to ventilate on various issues that the government in power is doing. But again, I have limitations because there are things I can say as a UPND spokesperson that I cannot say representing government, because we do not want to go back to that era where a government is in place and then you have Sunday Chanda and Antonio Mwanza addressing the nation of government policy issues and not the politics of PF. So we do not want to politicize the operations of government to the extent that the government begins to be run by the party and not itself. Remember that this is a government and a party that has drawn a very clear line that a government and its party are different. The government will operate as a government and the party as a club. We will have to operate, but at some point there must be a seamless joint where or confluence where we must intersect to ensure that we are all singing from one page. So I do humbly accept your kind reminder. And we have a job to do as the government, because me, as a minister of government, I do indeed have another layer of obligation to be able to communicate to the people of this country as a minister of government, because all ministers of government are government spokespersons. That is why you have one chief government spokesperson, meaning that all ministers are spokespersons. So I think that all of us, we are listening to this kind of advice and we are beginning to pull our socks so that we begin to communicate to the people adequately. Indeed, there is no need that people should be begging for information. It should be us begging the people to listen to what we are saying.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable. In the studio, we've been joined by Wellens Miola. Wellens, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Lance. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know, it seems like you have two devices that are joined into the studio. So one is bringing feedback.
I don't have any. Actually, I'm just alone in the room. I don't know where it is coming from.
Okay. Anyway, you can go ahead with your comment or your contribution.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do follow you actually, and I just want to reiterate what you said and what I know about it, because I've been actually ticking, because the president on inauguration said get a piece of paper or a booklet and tick our promises that we said during our campaign, and I have been ticking.
I don't know, Honorable, are you able to get him properly? There's
very clearly, very clearly.
Okay, great. You can go ahead, Wellens. Wellens, do we still have you here? Wellens? Okay. If you are hearing us, can you kindly unmute and continue with your input? Okay. Wellens, welcome back. Okay, seems like we have problems. I don't know, it should be with internet or something. Well, in case you have just tuned in, you are watching a special interview brought to you right here on Ubuntu channel, and we have the UPND spokesperson, that is Honorable Cornelius Mweetwa, who is also Southern Province Minister, as we are discussing the progress that has been made in the campaign promises that the UPND had made to the Zambian people. All right, so let's get to read a few messages that have come through, and please, Honorable, take note, as we would like you to, as we'll read three, and then have you respond to all of the three at a go. So one comes through from Josephine, and she says, Honorable, I'm one of the people that were left out during the teacher recruitment, and I'm complaining looking at when I graduated in 2015, yet people that completed recently were picked. All right, Josephine, thank you so much for that concern. So Willens comes through a comment saying, hi, Honorable Cornelius Mweetwa, MP. As a lawyer, do you think the judiciary is on course? We haven't seen any suspects be prosecuted or sentenced in jail. Can you please tell the nation if this fight for corruption is persecution of the opposition? All right, thank you so much, Wellens. If we could read one last time, one last message, and then have our guest get to attend to the comments that have come through. Or if better still, Honorable, we can have you respond to the two that have come through.
Well, thank you very much for the first one, a concern about being left out in the last teacher recruitment. I think that the criteria was set out by the Ministry of Education, and then they had put up a criteria which was not just looking at when you graduated. It was looking at, from what I know, it was looking at the quality of grade 12 results, the quality of the certificate, the issue to do with when you graduated, issues to do with age, and so on. The truth of the matter is this: we had 117,000 people who applied as for recruitment as teachers. And ordinarily, out of 117,000 plus, when you are just going to get 30,496, you know that the majority will be left out. And when they are left out, there will be this kind of scenario or cases. But I'm happy to indicate that this is not the end of it. As you know, we have never had such a huge number of teachers recruited at once. You haven't seen it before. But it has happened because the government has worked prudently in the last 1 year to try and save public resources that would in turn be channeled towards teacher emoluments, those who have recently been recruited. I'll tell you that this president means well. And so for those who have been left out, do not despair. There could be a second opportunity coming. You can be a teacher. There is now recruitment of ZNS, ZAF, Zambia Army, immigration, adverts running. You can still apply. And that is yet another opportunity that is, on your sleeves. Me, I started as a teacher, by the way, and I worked as a police officer. Later on, I became a lawyer. So you can always transition in life, with what you do. I started as a teacher, I became a policeman, I became a lawyer. So if you have been left out, when there are these opportunities that are opening up, keep on trying your luck. maybe one of these doors is going to open. Otherwise, the president means well. He has demonstrated that he really wants to create opportunities for the young people. And that is why you have seen that you have a president who has gone 1 year plus, no salary, 1 year plus. He has never received any pay because he's saying, I don't have time for that. The time I have now is to work for the people of Zambia. Work, to be able to give back from that which I benefited out of taxpayers' support for me to have gone to school free of charge. That is what is happening. This is the president who is now traveling out of the country. When he travels within the region, SADC, he go, come. As if it is me traveling into Lusaka in the morning and I come back in the afternoons. He does that, or in an attempt to save taxpayers' money, to avoid paying hotels, expensive bills of huge security around, paying parking fees for the planes. All that the president is ensuring that he is adding value insofar as prudent management of national resources are concerned. You have seen him go to attend the UN twice, and even this summit, which was, I think, in Glasgow. The president has traveled commercial, just like any other ordinary citizen, so that you lower the cost. I recall one time when President Lungu chartered a plane to go and attend the UN General Assembly. I think the cost was 24 million United States dollars. One trip, without even the cost of the advance party and so on, accommodation and the like. But this is a president who goes to attend the UN General Assembly commercial. Like anybody else, he flies into Dubai. Dubai connects Washington or New York, whatever the destination.
Honorable, let me cut you short. Hold your thoughts. Let's accommodate Wellens, since he's back into the studio, so that at least you can respond to his query. Wellens, welcome back, and please go ahead with your contribution.
Oh, thank you very much. Am I clear now?
Very clear, sir.
Oh, thank you. Honorable, I'll go straight into the question, and it's a concern actually, I think, with a lot of people around. I'm not comfortable with the utterances of some oppositions. Specifically, we have Tayari inciting insurrection in the country, and violence, hate speech, and allegedly accusation laying on the feet of the president. What is your reaction on that, on such type of people in the country?
Thank you so much, Wellens. So, Honorable, you have two questions. The first one, which he asked on you as a lawyer, we haven't seen any jail sentence for this fight against corruption. So he asked, is it persecution of the opposition? And this other question that he has brought across of the opposition making utterances that may bring about change in the country.
Thank you very much. And at the time the question Wellens came through, I was just concluding to say we have a president who has ensured that 2 years now we are in the second year. All of us as ministers, we are driving second-hand vehicles left by our colleagues, the PF. And we are happy to drive these old vehicles because we didn't go there for comfort. We went there to create comfort for the people of Zambia, not for ourselves. So that is this administration for you. Now, let me answer Wellens quickly. Firstly, the fight against corruption is genuine. At some point, with 4 months, 5 months of New Dawn administration in office, some people had begun to think that this fight against corruption was a hoax, that it was not going to yield results, that in fact, this very opposition went to the mountaintop and started saying, this is just persecution of the opposition. But you have seen what has happened. Have you heard any one of them now say that this is the persecution of the opposition? They have gone quiet because they have seen that this fight is genuine. This fight is bringing about genuine cases to the fore, where when the anti-corruption arrests someone, they will tell the nation, this former minister has these 10 houses, has these 15 properties worth 40 million kwacha. I have been at parliament. This is my third term myself. I don't know, unless someone tells me when they went to parliament, they had those properties. Because even as a minister, now, my salary cannot, even if I serve 2 terms as a minister, I cannot manage to raise 40 million kwacha out of my salary, most of which goes to attend to challenges, funerals and all these challenges that arise in the constituency. So where did our friends find the money to have amassed all that wealth that they have amassed, which some of us are failing? The answer is simple. There was breakdown in the rule of law, and people were acting with impunity. Remember, this is a group of people who never imagined that they can leave office. They were talking of being in power for another 100 years. This is what they were saying publicly. So they became careless. That is what happens when you think that you will be in office in perpetuity. Sometimes you begin to do wrong things without thinking of what tomorrow will bring. Now, answering the question straight, this is a genuine fight. Currently, none of them can go and say this is political persecution, because there is no one being politically followed. Only those who have cases to answer are the ones that are being followed by the ACC. And you're also seeing what is happening at the ACC. There is a cleanup, because there were officers who were working with these same people. The ACC are trying to go and raid a suspect. They pick phones and alert them. Bane mwipe kanyoko. Muami efintu twala isa mairo. Nifwe oba ACC nebo so isa mweche wani tukumane paso grounds. Firishani. Fika baso na so mwipe kanye. That is why the fight against corruption was not yielding results. Once Musa Mwenye State Council took post as board chairperson for ACC, and Gilbert Piri took over as Director General for ACC, the whole scenario has changed. Now everyone knows that the ACC means business. Now, the ACC, notwithstanding it meaning business and having to arrest people, it soon came to the fore and light that a number of dockets would go to the DPP's office, because the DPP is the one who is supposed to authorize a fiat to prosecute those suspects. Many dockets would rot there. And that is why, having removed this former DPP, the president has now nominated for parliamentary ratification Mr. Gilbert Piri to now go and be the one to quickly authorize the prosecution of suspects, so that once dockets are taken to the DPP, then there is prosecution express. Secondly, we are a government of laws and not a government of men, where the law prescribes what must be done. And this is a government that respects the doctrine of separation of powers, where the judiciary have to operate free of the executive and also the legislature, except for permissive overlap to enhance smooth operation of a government system as a whole.
Just hold your thought, Honorable. There's over these arrests which are happening, you could hear people are claiming or they are mentioning that they are having directive from the higher authorities. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I can tell you that President HH, many arrests that happen, sometimes I'm with him. He tells you that, Mweetwa, I've also just seen this. Have you seen this? This is a president who has left institutions of government to operate with within the province of the mandate that create those institutions and that authorize those institutions to do what they do. We are coming from a situation where some institutions of governance are still nursing a political hangover, where certain actions to be taken, you needed political authorization. This is a different, this is a different administration. The ACC as an example, the Drug Enforcement Commission as an example, they are operating free of any political interference, just like Office of Auditor General. All these oversight institutions, police inclusive, are operating freely without any interruption or interference whatsoever. The judiciary, therefore, when they receive cases, it is them to determine how fast they want to move these cases, but we know that our courts are clogged. And that is why I will not be surprised too long from now if we are going to have more judges being appointed, and I'm saying this because I'm aware, being appointed because we want to expand the judiciary so that cases brought before the court can be expeditiously disposed of. Because when cases are held at the courts, number one, you are violating on the human rights of individuals, those who are walking with a noose around their neck, and this dark cloud hovering around on top of their heads, with public perception that these people are criminals, they have committed acts of criminality, so they can't even move freely. Cases have to be disposed of quickly so that the people who are alleged to have committed offenses are either convicted in accordance with the law or are acquitted. They live normal lives like everybody else. That is what the law provides. So the judiciary, I'm sure there will be some reforms that are coming quickly to ensure that the judiciary meets the demands of the moment, so that this issue of clogging of cases at court, and people think that when people are taken to court, they will not be convicted, should become a thing of the past. Let me quickly talk about the arrest of Chirufya Tayari. I have indicated before that a person like Chirufya Tayari is a political mercenary who is being hired by the likes of the Patriotic Front to wage a relentless war against President Hakainde Hichilema. Not on policy, but on politics. Because these are people who know that they cannot debate with us policy. They can't debate with us policy. Even on the floor of the House, you are seeing what is happening. They can't debate with us policy. They can only politic, because that is where they have an advantage. They are used to political propaganda. They are used to misinforming the nation so that unsuspecting citizens may think what they are saying is the gospel truth. Now, because they are seeing that President HH is delivering on his electoral promises, they can no longer now challenge him on that frontier. Recall that a month or a week after his inauguration, they started saying President HH lied that he is going to give free education. He has failed. He will not bring about free education. Now, this was even in the midst of the year, actually towards the end of the year. How do you begin to give free education when the year is coming to an end? You're having a budget where free education is not provided for. We said, hold your fire. Wait for the UPND budget. Amulitere, kwaten. Once the UPND budget came into effect, January 2022, free education. So they stopped talking about free education. They now said no. But when we have gone to these schools, our children are sitting on the floor. There are no desks. But if you are saying there are no desks, who left that situation? It is yourselves who did not budget properly, because money was only available to a clique of individuals, and those available to others, it was political handouts for political expedience and appeasement. HH has turned around that situation, and we are in a more better situation now. Now, because President HH is walking the talk, his electoral promises are being met one after the other, day in, day out. Soldiers Once I form government, those in the foreign missions who are serving as peacekeepers, you will get your 100% allowances that the president has delivered. So there is very little to criticize by the opposition. What have they done? They are ganging up now to begin to be insulting the president day in, day out, so that when they are arrested, the same way Chirufya Tayari has been arrested, they appeal to these good hearts of Zambians for sympathy. But why are they arresting their friend? Like Chirufya Tayari, you know that he has been arrested because of his own political, what I call political stupidity. He has been arrested for that. But then his cohorts, his sponsors, they now went to visit him at the police station and came out to hold press conferences and begin to say Chirufya Tayari is being arrested because he's questioning the government that they have given a private institution to audit defense and security wings. Totally fabricated. But because these are liars who are specialized in lying. And I have one question to ask. Why is it that in this country, when you have a president who is doing the right things, a president who is walking the talk, who is keeping his promise, who is respecting the rule of law, who is working towards economic recovery and economic equilibrium and sustainability thereof, a group of people gang up to try and bring such a president down in the like manner that President Mwanawasa, when he was president, he was demonized to the extent that he went to his grave knowing that he was the most disliked president. But this is a president who had left the kwacha performing from 7 kwacha to 250 kwacha relation to the dollar. We had teachers, we had police officers managing to save, to be able to buy a second-hand motor vehicle and put it on the road as a taxi to get an extra income. But this is a president who was demonized. Why are people now, just like the Mwanawasa time, ganging up to demonize a president who is working, not even being paid, but has brought its confidence? Inflation has reduced to single digits. The dollar has collapsed at the feet of the kwacha. Now, this is a president who is being fought so relentlessly. The answer is simple.
Thank you so much. Just there. I'm going to hold you to bring in another follow-up question. Majid, are you able to get me, Honorable?
Yeah, there is a strange sound. I can't hear you correctly, but I can get what you're saying.
What about now?
Yeah, you can proceed. I'll get what you're saying.
Thank you so much, Honorable. And we appreciate so much that President Hakainde Hichilema is walking the talk. But as much as you say that he is walking the talk, there are still many Zambians who are still complaining about the high cost of living. They are saying the economy, things are still high. The bag of meal is still above 100 kwacha. Fuel is gone over 20 kwacha. What is your reaction? Will you still claim that the president is walking the talk?
Thank you very much. You see, there are two things here that have to be understood very clearly and simply. Number one, when President HH took over administration of this country, he found the economy performing at negative 2% growth rate. Negative. And the Bank of Zambia had told the nation that that was the lowest ebb in the history of this country that the economy had so poorly performed. So when you inherit an economy at negative 2% growth rate, and you move it now to 2% growth rate going forward, it means you have moved 4 percentage points in the positive direction. That is progress. But whereas at that point, it has to be acknowledged that it would be demanding for too much to expect everything to be rosy here and now, when we all agree that we inherited an empty treasury. And what is meant by an empty treasury is simply to state that Zambia at that time had no money in the treasury, as would be evidenced by its failure to meet its international obligation. So when you borrow from your neighbor money and your neighbor says, Bane, shaniko kajaka ndalama, then you say, ine ndalama ijaniribe. It means you are broke. Zambia was broke as of August 2021. Therefore, when you inherit a broke economy, it means you must now work towards economic resuscitation, economic recovery. As you recover the economy towards functionality, positive functionality, you do not expect the full benefits of a functional economy to begin to yield here and now. It takes time. You have measures that are being put in place. Some are in the short term, some in the medium term, some in the long term, for them to yield the desired results that would end up begin to affect commodity prices to go down. That is the reality which we cannot run away from. So we must accept that we were in a deplorable and deteriorated state that would not allow us there and then, that simply because we have formed, we have changed government, now things must be what we want them to be. We have to undergo this painful process of reform and restructure. We recall the reforms and restructure that we went through under President Mwanawasa. It was very painful. Some of the measures government put in place, some people are saying, no, we are being punished. We haven't seen the benefits. But at the end of the day, all of us, we know that 2, 3, 4 down the line, years down the line, we began to see right with our own eyes those benefits. So we should always remember we are pulling the economy from a deep, cliff where it had collapsed to try and bring it back to life. Number
but
two.
Honorable, allow me to come in from there. When you were campaigning, you said you had already formulated a plan, and also you had information already on how government coffers had deteriorated and everything. So you had a plan that was put in place to see to it that the cost of living for Zambians is going to be bettered immediately you come in. What changed?
Thank you very much for that question, because it gives me latitude to explain even better, I hope. Number one, we had the information, yes. But then look, recall that when we are coming into office, when we are campaigning to form government, all these years that we have been campaigning, no one knew that we would take over government at a time when our economy is being, number one, the crippling debt that we have already talked about, international debt, and also the local debt to the tune of $7 billion US dollars. Local debt. The local debt and international debt put together almost equated to Zambia's GDP. What does that tell you? It tells you that the economy was choked and was in ICU. That's number one. Number two, all this time we have been campaigning, with you and me did not know that we will be taking over government at a time when Russia is waging a war with Ukraine, which has affected the global fuel prices, and Zambia being wholly dependent on imported fuel. The fluctuations and rise in fuel prices have affected Zambia's economy, because fuel lubricates the economic engine of the country. And that is the reality that all the people know. So the cost of living, one of the driving forces of the cost of living is the cost of fuel, because fuel is needed in the production of goods and services and its transportation or their transportation thereof. So when the international fuel price goes up, it means that our production and productivity is affected. It means our production cost is affected, our transportation cost is affected. Therefore, this has mitigated negatively on our quest to be able to move the economy faster to a better position. But even with this situation, you and me agree that we are now in a much better situation than we were in 2021 when we took over this administration. We are seeing this as being reflected from the buoyancy and bullish nature that the kwacha has assumed over convertible currencies. Cross-border traders who had closed their shops at Comesa, those shops that had closed at Manda Hill, at arcades everywhere, because you could not manage to import. Go to them now, go to Manda, you find they are full. Cross-border trading has come full strength. What is remaining now is to begin to harness the benefits of having a functional economy so that on the ground, the commodity prices are going to begin to be affected positively. And even then, you will recall and agree with me that I think it is last month when the JCTR, the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, which does the monthly food basket, they reduced the cost of the food basket for last month by 200 kwacha. And cooking oil, which was selling for 250 kwacha in some outlets. Go now. I've just come from some beef shop here in Choma. They are selling it at 190 kwacha. And I asked them, why is it that your price is 190? They said, no, we are responding to the, market changes, the positive, changes that are happening in the market. We are trying to give the benefit back to the consumer.
Honorable, let's speak for an average Zambian. That depends on a 500 kwacha that they get from these industries where they work from as a salary. Yes, government may boast of low inflation, which has reached to a single digit. Government may boast about the kwacha doing well on the markets, but it's not trickling down to an average Zambian that depends on a 500 kwacha. And when we look at this basic needs basket that JCTR presented in the month of October, Lusaka still remains high with over 5,000 for a 1 month of basic needs. What are you doing as government and as a party in power to make sure that as much as you boast of these tremendous positives that you have achieved, it also trickles down to an average Zambian, because not everybody has got a job. Others, they're depending on a 10 kwacha every day. How do you make sure that it trickles down to an average Zambian?
Thank you very much for that question. By the way, we are not boasting. We are stating facts. Boasting is being hyperbolic about something beyond what you have actually achieved. What we are doing, what we are saying is just simply what we have done, which everyone is able to see. And that is why you have been able to see changes that are being reflected in the monetary value of our currency. Let me indicate this. When we talk about the cost of living, we must be mindful, first of all, that from the time President HH took over office, a number of things have taken place in this country that are targeted at ameliorating the cost of living, mitigating the cost of living. Number one, all those workers of government who had retired, many of them more than 10 years, some of them even died without ever seeing their terminal benefits. Government ensured that in the 2022 budget, they were all paid off. All of them.
Honorable, Honorable, sorry to cut you. Here, I would like you to speak for an average Zambian that is not in a government job or
That
that
is what
worked in
I'm coming to.
government, because
I'm
government
coming to that.
takes care.
I'm coming to
Okay,
that.
so
I'm coming to
okay.
that. I'm coming to that because I have to give a full bouquet because I must speak for all Zambians generally. So I have said a number of things have happened to ameliorate or mitigate the cost of living. Number one, an average Zambian who had retired and has no income has been paid their money. If you're working for Tazara, you're working for KCM, your arrears paid by government. You were going to the Ministry of Justice singing 2 months, no one is responding to you under the previous administration. You have been paid, except for a few instances I'm aware, such as former Zampost workers, and that matter has already been brought to the attention of the Minister of Finance and Secretary to the Treasury. So that is one route towards ameliorating the cost of living for an ordinary person, because a retiree is a vulnerable person. Number two, the government has introduced free education. By introducing free education, it means that this family, which was struggling now to look for money to go and pay for their child at school, and also look for money to buy a bag of mini meal, they can now just concentrate on a bag of mini meal and to carpenter and so on. They have made a saving because government has subsidized the education of their children. That is a social protection measure that is targeted at ameliorating the cost of living. Now, the cost of living itself, you have also to understand that for an ordinary person out there who has nothing to do but has decided to become a farmer, right now they are getting fertilizer for free, which they will not pay the government back. These are measures that the government is putting in place to ensure that our people are able to manage. Now, let me respond directly. When you have inherited a country whose economy is in the negative, it means there is little money. In the words of President HH, you cannot share poverty. So when you don't have anything to share, what is it that you can share? When you form government, the money that government has, government relies mainly on taxes and also accessing concessional grants from the international market in order to cushion its economy. So when the economy becomes functional and is able to absorb some of the demands, social, consumption-based demands of our people, that is when you are able to give. You can't give what you don't have. And this is what I have said in this interview, that the fact that we have changed government does not mean that automatically everything now and then should become what we wanted it to be. It is work in progress. And that was why you have seen in this year's budget for 2023, the one that is under consideration at Parliament right now, the Minister of Finance has taken the ceiling for the threshold for pay as you earn higher to free more and more people, who are working but low income, brackets away from the net of taxes. This is a measure that the government has put in place in recognition of the cost of living. And so more people are freed from the tax zone by this 2023 budget. And I can also share with you that as recognition that the cost of living is high, the government starting tomorrow is beginning social protection measures, which will be announced by the Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises, to cushion our people directly. I don't want to be the one to announce it, but come tomorrow by lunchtime, you will have known that the government is responding to the cost of living by empowering our people directly. But I can only go as far as that for now.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I'm going to divert a little bit from what we've been discussing, but I think it's still in the line with our interview. I've got two questions. The first one is, there's a claim out there that the UPND government, it's not accommodating women, and they don't value, the leadership does not value the pride of a woman. I would love you to react to that. Then the second one, there's a group of people in society. These are young people who can't even like apply for CDF, and literally, I don't know how I would describe these young people. Some maybe they're even maybe in the middle age anyway, where they can't apply for CDF, they can't work, they can't do. Literally, it's very difficult. And these are people who are so committed when it comes to voting. What do you have for them as the UPND government? How are they going to benefit from the government? And even during the Youth Day, I know this is not your area, but I think I would love you to tackle it from the UPND party angle. Even when we talk about the celebration of the Youth Day, this group of people are not really like accommodated. What is your reaction to that?
Well, thank you very much for that. Those two questions. Firstly, I think the issue about I didn't know that there is such an issue out there, that the UPND does not value the contribution of women.
The pride.
I'm hearing it for the very first time. I don't know in what context. Are you able to contextualize it for me so that I give it a measured response?
It's actually, I've heard it from one of the opposition leaders. When women are in UPND, they are not valid. It's very difficult for you to be adopted. It's very.
You mean Savoy Imboera?
Please, Honorable, go ahead.
You know, Savoy Imboera is my friend. She's my friend, and through this thing that I had told you earlier on, that I was chairman for the Men's Parliamentary Caucus on Gender, supporting women participation. We have been to various platforms together with her, trying to promote women participation. But she's a lost cause now. I don't know what is happening with her. I think Dr. Kambwili did not do her a fair game by leaving a political party in her hands when he tactfully went back to PF alone and left a branch of NDC away from PF so that the UPND can win. So that was very tactful, and we thank Honorable Kambwili for that tactical maneuver, because he just had to do that so that this change, comes about. But my own friend, Savoy Imboel, I think that she's losing it. I don't know what her frustrations are. I was thinking that her having been a UPND member, I know she got frustrated from the fact that she had hoped to be adopted in 2016 on the UPND ticket, and then she wasn't adopted. And from that time, she became volatile against the UPND. But I would like to encourage her to remain strong and resilient. It is not all the time that you want to stand and then you are adopted. Okay, even I stood, on one or two occasions, and I wasn't adopted, and that did not mean that was the end of the road. I think that she can still come back to what we have known her to be, not these wild allegations that are baseless that she's making. We have always given a carte blanche that if you think that in the UPND there were people who were harassing you, why not report them to police? Because Mlando so why not report them? Why all the time going into the media to go and blow hot air? Now she has become one of those zealous insulting President HH. And I was thinking that as a young leader herself, she should have carried herself in a different manner so that we begin to promulgate a different style of politics that is issue-based. But again, she has been recruited in a wrong camp. a camp where people believe in politics of insults, mudslinging, name calling, and propaganda. That is why she is now, behaving like that. That is not true what she's saying. We have a decent vice president who is representing the women of this country. We have a number of ministers who are women, and that is why even for chief government spokesperson, the president chose a woman to give a woman face of government, as a way of showing and that the government values the contribution and work, of women in the UPND and in this country. So that is the issue. Now, your second question, I've even forgotten. What was the second question?
It's what does the UPND have in package?
For the young people.
Yeah, especially
First of all,
who can't do anything, especially they're there. I'm sure even when you give them business, honorable,
yes,
they can't even run a business.
First of all, it has to be acknowledged that the job of creating jobs for the young people and indeed for everybody else lies with the government working with the private sector. The majority employer in the country is not government. Government just has about 500,000 employees. But there are thousands of employees out there. The majority employer is the private sector. The job of government, therefore, is to ensure that the business environment is made conducive in the country to allow the private sector to expand so that it can absorb more and more young people into the job industry. Go anywhere, go to America, go to whichever country you can visit. There is no government which is the major employer. The major employer is the public sector. That is why you have seen that the administration of President Hakainde Hichilema has placed premium on promoting the growth of business in this country. That is why we are having predictable and attractive policy and regulatory regime in this country, be it even in the mining sector. There is a stability there. Honorable Msokotwani presented a budget a few weeks ago, which the opposition have failed to criticize. Are you listening to Parliament? Right now, Parliament is scrutinizing head after head, head after head. Have you seen the opposition stand up to vote against every head? They are just standing up to say, Madam Speaker, as I support, it means the government is on course. It means the government is doing the right things. But to create an artificial perception that everything can be attained now and here is not right. Let us create the right mindset for the young people to know that not everyone will get a job now, but that those who may get a job through government, through the private sector. Those who don't get a job, there are opportunities out there that government is beginning to unlock through CDF and also through this program, which I'm telling you about tomorrow. You will be happy. I wish this interview was tomorrow evening. Some of the questions may already have been answered by what is going to be inaugurated tomorrow.
Honorable. Let me take cognizance of Mr. Ribat. Ribat, good evening and welcome. Ribat. Okay, he seems to be muted. Honorable, I have one last question which I would like you to attend to, and I'm still bringing you back to the cost of living, because this is what is thorny in the Zambians, or in the Zambians' flesh. This new system that the UPND government, or the New Dawn government, has introduced of fuel pricing, where this month it goes up, the other month it goes down. Don't you think it is part of the problems that the government is facing in order to keep or to drop down the cost of living, because you have no idea, or a businessman will have no idea on how to budget for next month because they don't know what the prices of fuel will be. And also it trickles down. Again, I go back to an average Zambian who feels the impact vakakwezeka mitengo za basi, because afunka kweseke kasaka kake kakandolo from Soweto kulikweva endo gulisira and all this and that. Don't you think this is a vice that has made somehow the New Dawn government to fail to capture the cost of living?
Well, I would like to be very categorical. Firstly, the cost of living is directly linked to the cost or pricing of fuel. And we have already debated the intricacy or relationship between our economic activities and dependence on fuel whose prices we don't determine. So, if you are going to say that the prices should not fluctuate because they bring about unpredictability in business planning, that is correct. But that is just one side of the coin. Why is it that people only complain when there is a fluctuation that represents a fuel hike, and when ERB makes a fluctuation downwards, everywhere people are happy? No one says, no, you shouldn't have made this fluctuation. This fluctuation should have waited for another 2 or 3 months because we would have the business predictability or planning. Why did you change the fuel prices downwards? So there are advantages and disadvantages of these fluctuations. The disadvantage is that it makes difficult for business planning going forward. The advantage is that once the fuel price drops, the government does not allow a fuel dealer to continue to receive money which they are not entitled to. That money has to go back to the pocket of the consumer there and then. So that is the simple logic which is there. But I must indicate that this is as a result of advice from the technocrats who are saying, look, if we are going to say in 4 months, let us fix the price at this. What if the cost of price of fuel goes higher than where you have fixed that pricing? It means you are asking the supplier of fuel to be supplying fuel and selling it at a price lower than the price they are commercially viable to transact, which would trigger fuel shortages, a catastrophe that is avoidable by maintaining this system now. And this system has actually this far proven that, yes, it has disadvantages, but when it is on the side of the advantage, it works well because it translates, the benefit to the consumer there and then. Once on the international market, the fuel prices have gone down, you also lower it locally and everybody is happy. We are all praying that Russia-Ukraine war comes to an end so that we can have international fuel stability, so that this issue that is plaguing our economy can be a thing of the past. We remain mainly with domestic issues and the international date to determine our economic destination. This far, there can be all these questions and concerns. All Zambians, including those in the opposition, they are happy to be Zambian because we are a happy people again. We are a proud people again. Zambia is respected because of its human rights records now and its performing economy. Thank you.
Honorable Mweetwa, goodbyes are such sweet sorrows, and unfortunately with time, what goes up must definitely come down. This time around, I have to curtail your time. I give you 1 minute, 30 seconds for your concluding remarks or your appeal to the Zambian people.
Well, I can only thank you, colleagues, for bringing me on this platform. And I want to indicate that I'm available whenever you want me again. I'm available to come and interact with yourselves. I thank you for the intriguing questions. I know they are meant to give us a platform to be able to exonerate ourselves and be made to be given an opportunity to clarify. Out there, we are urging our people to support President HH because he has demonstrated high caliber of leadership. He has raised the bar of leadership in this country. No wonder some people are saying this man should have been arrested. Where was he all this time when the country was suffering, when in fact he should have come to the fore to provide this better leadership? But it's not him. It is time. It is the voters. God's time is the best. Maybe this was the right time for him to have come. When the economy was at its lowest, you needed a man like him to come and be able to put in the effort that he has put in to begin to bring back the economy to life, to bring back a breath of fresh air, the governance of this country, so that peace is reigning supreme. Levels of sanity in this country are so insane that some people now are even thinking, this is the Zambia we wanted. Thank you so much, colleagues. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and goodbye.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead, Himba.
Thank you so much, Honorable, and it has been a privilege having you here, and we pray that we'll have you soon here because we are thirsty with information. The Zambian people are thirsty with information, and we are so happy and proud of you as the government with the good job you are doing. Over to you, Lance.
All right, so thank you so much to everybody that has come through to this broadcast. And Curtis, Mr. Olson, good to know that you are tuned in. Thank you so much to Angela and everybody that managed to come through, Mr. Ribat. And for those of you that took time to watch this interview, thank you so much. Today we were hosting UPND's spokesperson, that is Honorable Cornelius Mweetwa, who is also the Southern Province Minister, as we were discussing. Is the UPND on course in delivering the promises that they made? Make a date with us when we come back again on this very platform to make you meet your leaders and question them on how far they have gone with the promises that they made. I've been your host, Lance Sanibanda, together with Himba. We say have a blessed evening, and also a great thank you goes out to the production team together with the IT. Thank you so much and good evening.
Mm-hmm.